Welcome to DHS. I know it's been a long time since we did a lecture, and a lot of people were pestering for a lecture. Hopefully, we can make you happy today with a lot of surprising new things that are going to help us all. First of all, I want to dedicate this lecture to all the doctors and nurses over the last 2 years that risked their life, risked their careers, risked their licenses, their family, their friends to stick up for the truth. What's gone on in the last couple of years, in the practice for 42 years, I can't believe what I've seen, because people who took an oath to help people actually had problems with following through on that oath. I want to congratulate all those doctors that had the guts to stand up to the system. God bless all of you. And for you folks that are being exposed for not actually helping humanity, but hurting humanity, it's time to repent. You don't want to get into this life and the next one with the way you've been behaving in the last one. So I'm talking to them. Thank you for all those doctors that really helped us out and had voices. Dr. McCullough is one, amongst others, but I'm going to leave all the rest of them out because they have enough trouble. Number two, since the last lecture, I've watched the devolution of society. All of us can't believe what we actually have seen taking place. Our churches let us down. You'd let us down, didn't you, Ted? It's time to repent for you. Schools let us down. Our jobs let us down. You can take all the athletes. I could care less about sports. Hollywood let us down. Society's crumbling from mischief. We're living through the second greatest hoax in history. If you don't know what the first hoax was, watch The Ultimate Lie, Find Your Way Home. That's the first greatest hoax. You're living through the second one right now. I got great news for all of us. We're going to be able to take our health back to ourselves. But first, I got to mention a couple things. As everybody realizes, I've turned 65. It's the Medicare years. In my life at 65, starting to look at getting older, I've been in some assisted living places that I thought were excellent. I've been in hospitals with old people, and you start realizing I might end up in one of these one day. As you get older, that's what you're starting to look for. Now, watching what happened in the nursing homes, I have redoubled my effort on my own personal health because I cannot believe that we're actually locking people into a nursing home, forcing experimental medications on them, not letting anybody visit them. I can't imagine spending the last years of your life like that. My heart broke for what these elderly people had to go through, alone, dying with strangers. I never want to see that happen again. I have a whole bunch of doctors and nurses as patients. I actually have moles everywhere. When one of the gals in Milan says to me, an emergency room nurse comes in and says, "You're not going to believe it. A motorcycle guy comes in, DOA, dead on arrival. The head nurse says, test him for COVID. She said he's dead. Test him anyway. He's positive. Motorcycle fatality, complications of COVID. That's an extra 40 grand. To watch a system that was paid to lose. Saturday, I sat with this gentleman who gave me his card. Chief Executive Officer, Medical Director of a large hospital, and I'm letting him stay anonymous. He told me disgustingly that they made $200,000 for every fatality. It was a bonanza. I'm sitting there talking to a doctor thinking I'm living in the twilight zone. He was disgusted at his own hospital, and he's the guy in charge. Renee, a made-up name, works in a hospital. She's a 40-year-old nurse. She came in and said, all these vaccinated injuries are coming in, and they want me to check that they're not vaccinated. And the head nurse said, you got to check that box. And she said, I did not get into this job to lie for you. You check the box if you want to lie. Too many stories are coming out that are absolutely disgusting. Died suddenly has become a movie. We've watched it everywhere, so I'm not really going to belabor the point. But to watch the heart attacks on kids, Dr. McCullough said all these stillborns, as a cardiologist, were heart attacks in the womb. The kids didn't even have a chance to get born. They had a heart attack before they were born. Look it up. We're looking at numbers right now. They're talking about 1 out of 300 in the country having a fatal incidence. We've never had a war that posted these kind of numbers. Stay on your toes. Life insurance actuarial tables said we lost 3 years in the last year. Ask your life insurance people what it's like to be going broke from the fatalities because they can't afford it anymore. You and I are going to have to pay for this. The bottom line is, I've never felt the urgency on my own self as I'm getting older to check all the boxes to make sure I don't got to go to any one of those places until I have to, because you might not leave. My wife has a couple of friends that she goes to lunch with once a month. Maria, Bev, and Sue. Bev had a nice little chest cold a couple weeks ago, and I suggested to her, she was having trouble getting over it. She's a long-term, extremely healthy patient. She lives alone and she's nervous, and I suggested, Bev, go to urgent care, maybe get a breathing treatment, get an antibiotic, something that can help you over this pneumonia. So a couple weeks ago, she calls me and says, my heart's kind of out of rhythm. They want to put a pacemaker in. I said, great, put a pacemaker in. They do well. I got patients with them. I got friends with them. I think they're great if you have to have one. They work wonderfully. So I encouraged her to get the pacemaker, figuring she'd be out in a day. This was 2 Thursdays ago. Friday, they do the pacemaker. It's fine. Lauren calls me Sunday. Her liver and her kidney failed, and she died on Monday. My healthiest patient in 36 hours. How your liver and kidney can fail in a day and a half with a perfect kidney and liver. I want to get the records, but I don't know what they did. But when you get near the hospital, weird things are happening now, and it's time to try to take your health seriously because you don't want to go there. I have patients coming in that swear up and down that they will never go to the hospital again because the people are disgusted at what's happening behind the doors. You're losing the public. They're terrified of you. Now, I'm going to bear what do I have to do? This is what it takes to know you. How well do you actually know you? People come in with all these ideas that's what's wrong with them. It's embarrassing how backward we have become in health. So I'd like to run you through something about me. I lost ridiculously healthy patients in the hospital. I was shocked at the people that, when the men got behind the door, they didn't have the guts to do what the women did. The women said, I don't want remdesivir and a ventilator. The men didn't say that. I lost the men. The women walked out. I can't believe how many that I lost here. So in the middle of all this stuff, I start to realize hospitals are paid to lose. Would you go to a sporting game if you knew ahead of time that they were paid to lose? They're paid to lose, and people are going there willingly knowing that. This isn't a health crisis. We're at war. Now, in my journey, what has taken me to try to function to 65, this is my short story of the things I have to do. This is what I want you to learn about yourself, because we can't go anywhere when we're sick now because it's getting scary, because you might not draw the honest, sincere doctor. You might draw the one that follows Fauci's follies. Everybody that followed Fauci's follies was gone. Number one, I was a sickly kid. When I was born, all I did was throw up the first year of my life. I threw up constantly. My mom said they used about 50 different formulas till one would stay in my stomach because they thought I was going to die. I was bottle fed, end to end. I had iron overloaded in my system till I drove my stomach zinc out, compromised my digestive tract, and had a lifetime of allergies as a result of bottle feeding. I had enough earaches and sore throats for 10 people. My whole life was strep throat, amoxicillin, and Augmentin. I took enough of that. It was like candy after a while. I quit taking it. My whole life was irritated with my ears until Dr. Versendal helped me out. So I've got a compromised immune system. I have insulin resistance off and on. I used to have higher glucose, higher LDL, high triglycerides. I have secret gout. I have crazy out of control gout that my blood test says I don't have. My diet tells me completely different. I thought hockey was making me sore. My gout's making me sore. I have a hospital-induced bone graft infection, and my uric acid levels are normal. I have a permanent bone graft infection from the oral surgeon. They put bad bone in my face. I had yellow toothpaste coming out of the side of my gums for like a month. It's there every single day. If I have one scoop of ice cream, this thing will thrive in about 15 minutes. My whole immune system has been compromised from a bone graft infection, and I fight it constantly, and I'm tired of it. That's another little hospital mischief in my life. It took me a lifetime to actually understand me. I've had 2 inguinal hernias. I went to Canada to get this one stitched. That cost $5 grand, and the pills fixed these 2. I wish I would have tried harder on the one in my left groin, and I didn't. So that was $5,000 just to get it stitched shut, and they did a great job at Shouldice, where if you have to have it done, forget the mesh, pay the cash, and go to Canada. I got early esophagitis because from bending over and adjusting, me and Dr. Gill take turns pushing our stomach down because I get a burn in my stomach from bending over and pushing. I don't need esophageal cancer. Lots of people have gone down with esophageal cancers without many symptoms. I got to put this fire out in my stomach because I got enough acid shooting up from all the adjusting. I've ruptured my L3, L4 disc. One of my kids jumped on my back when I was little, blew my back out. I worked crooked for a week, so I have one ruptured disc on the left that I have to get that periodically adjusted by these great chiropractors. I got genetic heart disease. I have out of control numbers. I have a 0 plaque score and a 0 calcium score because of all the things I have to take because I'm terrified to go anywhere near the hospitals. I gave up when I was 12 because I was the kid with all the insurance in the neighborhood. My poor friends were well. I figured this out early. I'm not going back there because I had enough trouble as a kid. It was a nightmare trying to go up around medicine. I have high lipoprotein A. It's taken out family members around me. If you don't catch that, you'll have a problem. Nobody checks for that because there's no pharmaceuticals for it. They just ignore it. I got a hockey neck from being racked a bunch of times. I got an old, stiff, crusty neck that I have to get broken loose periodically. I'm chronically alkaline, because of my bottle feeding. I got to keep my body pushing acidic. I know most of you don't understand that. I had to explain it to the doctors. They don't understand it. They think we all got to be more alkaline. They're nuts. My PSA is a 1, but my cortisol is ridiculous, and I'll show you that in a minute. On top of that, there's 91 things that my body wants every day because that's the pregnancy protocol. If you don't get your minerals daily, the heavy metals find those holes. You're going to absorb heavy metals in a place people don't want to pay for their supplements. Fine, heavy metals will find a place that your vitamins and minerals, particularly your minerals, should have been. You have to stay well mineralized to keep the heavy metals out of your body. People are talking about being dried out. Who's got a dry mouth, a dry lips? Everybody's dry. And people are talking about why is everybody so dry? What do you think that answer is? Glyphosate is a desiccant. It dehydrates stuff. We all have been minerally dehydrated and they're pulling minerals out of us and we're all dried out. Got to keep your minerals up that are being pulled out when you eat. Got to keep your salts up to try to keep hydration in your body. If you asked me if I had, Dr. Tent, do you think you got a yeast infection? I don't got a yeast infection, really. You give me enough crummy sugar, I'm going to start to itch in spots that I can't scratch. I can itch until I rip the hide off my arm. I can itch until I bleed. Take a yeast pill, have it stop in 5 minutes. Yes, sugar, crummy sugar can feed a yeast thing in my body that I swear I don't have, but I do. My immune system's been shot. I work on it all the time. And as a result of that, I've survived 42 years here with 3 sick days. I played 3 hockey games a week for 35 years. And this is my biggest expense. I'm trying to manage my decline by knowing me. How well do you know you? A lot of you have been to the doctors. Do you understand what's wrong with you? Fluoride, Lipitor, and flu shots is not health. This is a scam that's been played on the American people for a long time. Excuse me. My biggest expense is my health. And now, I want you to understand something too, because this is true about this. You can possibly do every single thing right. You can take all your supplements. You can do the detox procedures. You can get a nasty cancer and die. It's happened to many people. They tried as hard as they could. They got clipped early. They're very frustrated on the way down. It can still happen. Life's a chance. I can't tell you doing this is going to help. I could go down in 2 weeks from something I don't even know I have today. I'm making the best attempt I can at managing my decline because I'm terrified at what I just witnessed in the last 2 years. They're paid to lose. I never expected that. So when all this stuff starts to happen, one thing I want to ask, if your healthy friends get sick, do me a favor, shut up. Don't judge them. Support them, pray for them, be kind to them, but don't pick them apart. The health industry picks everybody apart ridiculously, and the medical industry will let you die. I'd like to see the health industry get a little more class when people die. Just let them die. Don't analyze if they ate sugar or they ate ice cream or they had a cookie once, because you look like an idiot when you say that. Ernie Harwell dies at 94 as a patient of mine from a bile duct cancer. A health doctor came in and said to me, "What did he do wrong?" I laughed at him. What do you mean, he died at 94? You think you want to analyze what, this is the thinking in health today. It's embarrassing to me after my 5 decades of doing this. Don't judge the people because you don't know the road that they walked. You have to learn you. And when all this stuff happens, we get a phone call from a lab, Quest. We didn't ask for them. They asked for us. They said, how would you like us to set up a lab in your office and we can run any tests we want whenever we want? I'm like, you've got to be kidding. Is this serious? You actually want to do this? Quest. Next. I Skyped with this guy from Washington State yesterday. You know how excited I am? We're going to show you a list of tests that you can run. Look at this guy. Look at this. Is horrible. Don, you're watching in Washington. This is you. Cleveland Clinic panels are being offered to my patient. This horrible numbers on this guy. His heart's perfect. He's got a 0 calcium score. This is the kind of stuff. He's a patient that's studying how we've already fixed him. This guy's completely open with these catastrophic numbers. So what's important is these 2 guys and me. I want to say something else about this. We are salaried doctors. I didn't tell these guys I pay these guys very well. They're not paid to do anything to you. I refuse to pay to play stuff. They get good salaries. They're not paid to sell you pills, run tests. I refuse to participate in that. Last but not least, before I bring some of these guys up here, I want to officially announce my retirement from hockey. Gotcha. Sorry, Rob. The last concussion and the old hips, I don't think I'm going to make it. I'm 65. I'm terrified of being run over anymore. I've had a long career. I think I'm going to have to say goodbye to all you guys, and I'm doing it right now. I had a blast with all of you. I'll never forget you. Yes. Now, next and last. This is my buddy Vince. Vince, this is you. I know you're out there watching. One of my hockey buddies, who's been a lifetime patient, got the C word. So when he thought this is what you all look like, when you wonder about that little wheezy rattle that comes in, you think you're better, that's what his lungs looked like when they thought he was better. He was having trouble skating, his lungs were short of breath, etc., etc. This is what all the patients are coming on. Now, when you look at this, I've done chest x-rays for 42 years. You're looking at a weaponized virus. This was manufactured somewhere. Forget that this just came out of the blue. Whose lungs look like that? Now, if you don't have the right nutrition, it took me 6 weeks to do that to him, to get him back on the ice. Can you do that? There's no drug on the planet that would do this, and I want you under care for this. I have a bunch of before and after x-rays with COVID that look that good. That's when they thought they were well. I took a chest. You think you're well? That's a mess. Now, when me and my son finished the spring league, how can you raise a healthy kid? This is my number 1 son. This young man was homeschooled. We chased butterflies around in the backyard. Did a little private counted fish. There's 10 fish here. Put him in public school for a couple years. took recess in gym. The teacher said, well, maybe you should try harder. I didn't care because I knew public school, I went to it. It was a complete joke. I told my son, your generation's going to be ruined. Just take your supplements, pay attention. So my son, I want you to look up Dylan Tent on Instagram and TikTok, the Heli Realtor. He's taken his supplements. He's never been to a pediatrician. Watch what he's done with his life. He's got a bunch of bed and breakfasts. He owns a title company. He is a helicopter pilot. He runs Sotheby's for the great Doug Hardy in Northville in Birmingham. And what my son's done with no education, he's awake, he's sharp, and he's on the ball. I did not pester him about his grades. I didn't pester him about his classes. I made sure he had a good personality and he was healthy. He's killing the world right now because I told him, your friends are being ruined in front of you. Just stay healthy and you can shine. At 23, he looked at me and said, Dad, my friends are all messed up. I said, congratulations, you're not. Watch what my son's done with a creative little brain. You'll have a blast how he's teaching realtors how to sell houses, for real. Thank you, Dylan. You've done a great job. I'm very proud of you. Next. There's my cortisol. I'm an angry, upset white guy. They're stealing the country. The churches let us down. The schools let us down. The athletes. Yes, that's my cortisol. I've cut my schedule back. Every man that's paying attention is irritated today because we're being hosed left to right. The election's a joke. The politicians are a joke. The Republicans are a joke. The Democrats are a catastrophe. Our whole system's collapsing. If your cortisol's not up, you might be asleep right now. My testosterone, that tanked my testosterone. Isn't that fun? So this is the point of blood work. I would not know how high this was unless I looked into this. My testosterone's crummy, and I don't look like an estrogenized guy, but that's what stress will do to you. Next. My genetic clotting factor, I've tried to warn my family about this. Both my kids carry it. We treat 5, 6 of these a day. They're everywhere. They're sneaky heart attacks. These are the people that get a bypass and their chest pain continues after the bypass. Watch people come in after an angioplasty, my heart still hurts. That's the one that causes it, and the doctors don't even know what to look for. This is the kid in the candy store moment for me. When I saw this list, you mean to tell me, now right here, the Alzheimer's profile, that Chris Helmsworth guy playing Thor, that's what he tested for. His mom has one of those. His dad has one of those. He's got them both. He's terrified that he's going to end up with Alzheimer's. He's taken a pause from acting to try to find out what to do about his brain. Patients that have genetic histories for Alzheimer's, this blood test is aluminum, lead, mercury. Great test. I'm so excited to do these myself. Now look, I got to pay for these tests. I don't get these for free. I got to pay for these. This is a service we provide here. We all have to pay for our own tests. They bill my insurance company, which I never use anyway. Look at this. The male hormone panel I wanted to run to find out if I'm still a guy as they're trying to tell me that I should be a girl. I'm going to stay on the guy side, thanks. Autoimmune profile. You can pick whatever you want. They bill directly. We have nothing to do with this. It's a service we provide. I'm excited to age better. I'm going to be fine-tuning what I want to run. Let's see, I know my clotting panel. You need to all run that with heart disease. I ran the cancer profile before I signed a second contract for this building. We ran to see what my insides look like if I'd be around long enough to do that. Jeff's going to cover a mold situation. I ran my neurotransmitter profile. I want to see how much serotonin's in my head, how much dopamine's in my head. I'm like a kid in the candy store with this because we got supplements to support this entire sheet. The medical community has basically nothing. They've shot themselves in the foot, they stepped on it, and the awake people are pushing them out of the way. This is how you gain traction on your life before you go to the nut house. The VIP profile, the gut health profile. I just can't believe I have access to this. One I want to do soon is this micronutrient profile. Heavy metal panel in the blood. You don't find many heavy metals in the blood like you do in the hair because the blood is a recent exposure. The hair is a long-term exposure. I want to know that one on myself, but I got to come in fasting. If you've got diabetic relatives, start there. If your thyroid's a mess, start there. Autoimmune stuff, fantastic stuff. But to have them drop this in our lap and say, hey, how would you like to be an extension? Because we hear you guys have a great office. We'd like to be part of it. So we are. Now, because of this, now my boys are coming up and we got, I got two smart guys here that are going to help me age successfully. I'm breaking down a little bit, so I cut my schedule. These guys are both, Jeff has been with me his entire career. Craig was practicing 2 offices in Brighton and Berkeley. These guys are both first-class practitioners, and they both have taught me things. Craig schooled me on one of my patients. This is for you, George. This is great. Listen to this.
All right, this is the perfect example of somebody, a lifestyle and how it can affect blood work. George came in and he was telling me, this guy's got muscles in his eye. He's so well built, it's unbelievable. But he's well trained, well built. And he said, I'm getting this stiffness all over my body. I don't understand it. So we ran this iron panel on him. We found his iron to be extremely high. Typically, iron should be about 80 to 100, and he was 186. He doesn't have the hemochromatosis, but what he does have is iron inflammation. So we started to work on that iron inflammation, get that iron down. Now remember, iron will cause heart attacks and strokes, but before that, it'll cause that stiffness, that ache all over your body. We found out in his lifestyle what he was doing, if he's cooking on cast iron, which the iron will leach out of that cast iron into your food, and then all of his shakes that he was doing to work out, he was putting spinach in, and spinach is loaded with iron. We took those out of his life, put him on the supplementation program. He's already starting to feel the flexibility come back that he didn't have. So that was a great case.
I was very impressed with that, catching that pots and pan thing. I would have never thought to check for that. And Dr. Jeff has an excellent mold story, which he's done some very cool stuff with molds. It's everywhere.
In a second, yes, we'll talk about that, but we'll go back to the other one.
What's the other one?
The ferritin.
Sorry.
So, and that was a great find by Dr. Gill with the iron factor. I was running blood work on myself, and this is my blood work. Wow. Ferritin, which is the storage of iron in the liver, was high on myself, and I would not have known this unless I tested this back in 2020. It was at the high end of normal. And when I ran blood work just a few weeks ago, I decided to throw the iron in, or the ferritin and the iron back in there, and saw it was this high. I would have never known because I had no symptoms. There's a pretty popular doctor around the area that likes to say, test, don't guess, and this is a prime example of something of testing and looking at these factors, because I would have never known that this was an issue on myself. So luckily, it's going to be a simple fix, because a medical phlebotomy or donating blood will drop these factors down pretty low, as well as Dr. Gill's case. If someone has a high iron count or hemochromatosis, the medical phlebotomy works very well as far as dropping those levels down. But now, yes, going to the next one and talk about the mold. VCStest.com. I'm giving you guys homework tonight for special patients. I did my mold lecture back in 2019, and the different amount of cases that I was finding on patients with mold just was mind-boggling to me. And I have to emphasize, there's toxic molds and there's outdoor allergen molds. The outdoor allergen molds we address as, yes, a pH issue, being too alkaline, readjusting your pH with calamine, apple cider vinegar, things of that nature. But the toxic indoor molds are more of a problem for certain individuals, because these mycotoxins create chronic inflammation. And some of the symptoms that patients have: fatigue, weakness, headaches, lightheaded, memory issues, joint pains, skin sensations, shortness of breath, anxiety, depression, sinus congestion, chronic cough, vertigo, red eyes, hormonal imbalance, unresolved issues of fibromyalgia, Epstein-Barr virus, Lyme. These things, this mold stuff is in schools, churches, old buildings, homes, dorms, apartments, libraries. 1/4 of the population cannot detoxify mold from their system. So if you feel like those symptoms and you may be being exposed to something like this, VCStest.com is where you want to start. This is a $10 test that you pay for the results. There's an overall positive and negative and a biotoxin positive and negative. If the biotoxin part is positive, then we've got a Quest mold blood panel we could run with you, and I've got a urine mycotoxic Great Plains laboratory test we could run on you and go from there. More information on the mold stuff, go back to my lecture on YouTube on mold. Thanks.
Now, I want to make a comment that, you know, we are separate practitioners. It's comfortable. You can actually get a second opinion. We don't stick up for each other. We're here for you. We share patients. You can see Dr. Gill if you're seeing me. You can see Dr. Jeff. It's kind of difficult to move around a little bit, but we want to offer other opinions because it's easy for us to look. These guys are teaching me stuff, and I'm teaching them stuff, and that's how we all start to learn. After 42 years in practice, I actually feel like an amateur still. And they're showing me that I actually am. Now, this is exciting. This is really exciting. Don't send me these patients because I got lucky on one. Listen to this. This lovely lady and her husband comes in. She's 68 years old. I did not want to walk into the room. This is what she said. I have just felt horrible the last week. I feel like I'm running on half power. Reports, I'm feeling off balance, increased stress and fatigue. I feel nauseous. I'm losing fine motor skills in my hands, and I'm struggling to speak. I picked this up and went in the bathroom and didn't want to come out. So I knew she's got Lou Gehrig's disease. I've seen too many. I've never helped a Lou Gehrig's patient, so if you're thinking of come here, I can help the decline, I can help feed you, but nothing's ever turned it around. For you doctors out there, because I've seen a bunch that they never knew they had. Fingers up, feet up, throat out. That's how it works. So this lady comes in, and I sent her to the ALS clinic. She said, I'm not going. Why? She said, they're not going to do anything. You do something. So there's her hair analysis. There's her mercury levels. I can't believe her speech is getting better. Her fine motor control is getting better. And she says that. I'm shocked. I had 3 cases last week. The mercury levels were this long. Sushi, seafood, lobster. My Weight Watchers patients are coming in crippled because shrimp has 0 points to it. I watch people do 2 shrimp meals a day till they look like they had full tilt Parkinson's. They could hardly walk. When they stopped all the seafood, their walking improved ridiculously within 14 days in front of everybody. If you ingest it orally, it's easier to get out. If it's in your bloodstream, it's a nightmare. So her treating her heavy metals, she's actually coming back to life. I've never seen anything like it. And she said, could this mercury intoxication cause ALS? Yes. So this lady, I'm not sure she's out of the woods totally yet, but I've never seen anything improve like this. She's speaking. When you start struggling to form your words and you're losing motor control, you are in deep trouble. Run your hair analysis before you ever get into this spot because you don't want to get this deep into it because you might not get out of it. She looks like she's getting out of it. I'm very impressed with this. Am I next? Next.
Now, what we see a lot of times on all the commercials out there is you'll see all these men out there taking testosterone. Testosterone is literally sold everywhere now. The big problem with testosterone and where men don't realize they're getting themselves into a pickle is by taking testosterone and not understanding if you have an aromatizing pathway, you could be driving estrogen. What that means is your testosterone, as we get older sometimes as men, you'll convert testosterone into estrogen. Now this has a bad effect, and what the effect it has on is your prostate and the chance of developing cancers. There's literature out there that will support that certain prostate cancers are pushed by estrogen. So if you're out there taking those testosterone supplements and nobody's checked that aromatizing pathway, you could be on a nuclear disaster. You could be pushing your prostate into an area you don't want to be. So I recommend that the men out there check their aromatizing pathway before they ever do this testosterone. Otherwise, you're going to be driving that estrogen into the prostate, potentially causing damage to the prostate and or worse effects. So we recommend that before you ever do a testosterone supplement, you actually do aromatizing pathway.
This guy was my patient. I got out a little order here. This guy's the gym guy. He's all buffed up. He's huge. Great guy. He comes in. His biggest concern was, despite this, he said, look, prostate cancer is all over my family. I'm terrified of prostate cancer. With his estradiol that high, he's pushing himself right into it, and he had no clue he was doing this. It's a major problem out there that you don't want to get into. Now, please watch this little clip. You're not going to believe this. Just watch it. This is my patient. It's amazing when the patients are smarter than the doctors. Sharon just said something that's so incredibly brilliant. Could you please, she had a hormone responsive cancer. She came into DHS after. We're helping her with a lot of nutritional things. They've had great results here. Yep. Now, listen to the question. She had a hormone responsive cancer, and she's taking a bunch of pills for her hormones. Please go on with the conversation that you had with the doctor.
I asked my doctors why they weren't monitoring my hormones, and none of them had an answer to that. They said they've never had anybody ask that question before.
If you can even figure this out, at DHS, Quest Labs asked us to set up a phlebotomy lab. So today, after all that she's been through, we're going to check her hormones that the doctors have no clue what to check after having breast cancer from hormones. And having nobody say, folks, you got to start asking some simple questions because they're running right over you like they just ran over her. And she asked a question that they couldn't even answer that simple question. DHS rocks. Go get your blood tested. Let's find out what's really wrong with you. Next slide. Now, when I heard that she had cancer, I put her on the stuff I take to get rid of my estrogen. So by the time she got her test run, there's her test. Got everything back in range. But when she said, after chemo, radiation, and surgery, don't you think you guys should run a test on my hormones? And they said, that's a great idea. We never thought about that. Nobody's ever asked us that before. That's a good idea. I can't handle this. I just can't. I'm sorry. Maybe you can. Time for a shot. Now, while in the middle of this, thank you, dear. My wife just texted me and said, you're not suicidal, and who is starting your car? I'm watching out. Thank you, dear, for watching out for me.
All right, so here's the next patient. Fortunately, today we had a patient come in, and this fits along the hormones with Randy. I was in the hallway with the scribe, and I was looking at her hormones. I said, this is absolutely a disaster. I mean, this female must not feel like a female. So when I walked in the room, I said, you don't feel like a female at all, do you? And she said, no, I actually feel like a man. As a matter of fact, I'm in construction. I do construction work. The conversation went deeper. This gets a little sensitive, but went deeper. She said, I went as far as I dated women most of my life. It was a complete disaster. I never felt right about it. I always sabotaged the relationships. I felt like something was wrong inside of me. When we ran her hormones, we found, she's only 44, her DHEA is in the dumpster, her progesterone's in the dumpster, her pregnenolone's in the dumpster, and her testosterone's high. I said, did you ever have ovarian cysts? She said, oh my gosh, all the time. I had cysts breaking all the time. I mean, I was constantly in pain with it. She said, also, I said, you got no fats. You need cholesterol, you need good fats to make your hormones. I said, how were you fed as a kid? Well, she said, I lived on gravy and fried foods. I smoked my gallbladder, I had it removed. And she said, I don't have any gallbladder. I said, there's your answer. You've had no good fats in your life. Your hormones have bottomed out. I said, if we correct this in time, you'll be back in high heels and a dress. She goes, that's exactly what I want. She goes, I want to get back to feeling like a woman. That's how bad these hormones can be if they're not balanced.
That pregnenolone is 0. Continue on.
Yeah, and going, finishing up on his point too with, hormones as far as guys and girls. We've always talked about a lot of the things that are killing the guys today, but a lot of this is still affecting the females as well. Stress is a huge factor. As he showed that cortisol goes up, testosterone goes down, all female hormones goes down as well too. Exogenous estrogens affecting both guys and the females. And unfortunately, if I have high cholesterol, what do I do? Everyone's on statin medications. If you lower your cholesterol, you're lowering all your building blocks for your sex hormones. So this is a gentleman, he's a 61-year-old male, elevated cholesterol. His initially when he first came in, his total cholesterol was 253, LDL elevated at 184, triglycerides 136. We were able to change and do some pretty cool stuff with them. If someone's worried about their cholesterol, which everyone's got you worked up, and unfortunately the direction that the medical doctors are taking with most of you guys today is if your cholesterol is good or bad, they want to put you on a statin medication as preventative medicine, and that's not necessarily the case. But you want to look at your cholesterol in an NMR format and break down the particle sizing of your LDL. Your HDL is what they classify as the good cholesterol, LDL is the bad. If you break down the sizing of your LDL, we could find out, like we did with this gentleman, if you're producing type A or type B LDL. Type B is the dense type of LDL that will plug you up. Pattern A is the buoyant, fluffy kind that will not give you an issue. So you can have elevated cholesterol and elevated LDL that will not give you a problem if you're producing type A. He was producing type B. We did some very cool nutritional things with him, and we reversed his pattern. On his post-testing, he started producing type A cholesterol. This is my personal battle. Cholesterol runs pretty high in my family. I gotta stay on top of my diet and watch my numbers because sugars and carbohydrates train wrecks my numbers pretty easily. And we've got a great cardiac heart panel that we're running at the office. So if you want an in-depth look at your heart, swing in and we can do some very cool things. And follow up further with this, Dr. Gill's going to talk about the oxidized LDL part of this.
Well, to add to what Jeff was saying, and I know you've seen this too, Randy, on blood work, many times what we see is we see elevated LDLs. We see them constantly all the time. And Jeff's right, the small particle, the dense is not good. But if the LDL is not oxidized, the LDL doesn't have an effect. It's just a protein that carries the fat back and forth to the liver. So when it's oxidized, that's when it starts to destroy the lining of the artery or vein. That's when it starts to destroy it, and that's when it starts to set up the plaquing process. So if those LDLs are high but not oxidized, they're not harming you. They're of no harm. If they're small and dense and oxidized, that's when you have the problem. Now, moving on to my blood work of things that I have or see, if you look at my blood work, is it up there, Lauren? Okay. You'll see on my blood work here, you'll see this TMAO. What is that? That's the one that'll take that guy out with a heart attack when he doesn't look like the heart attack guy. It's a metabolite from gut bacteria brought on by L-carnitine from red meats, lecithin from eggs, and then dairy. Now, if you look at my diet, the girls around the office know that I live on two things. I live on red meat and chocolate. That's the two things that are going to be affecting me, and those are two things I got to cut. Now, the other thing is dairy. I found out eggs, I'm allergic to them, so I took those out. I changed my whole nutritional panel, and I noticed that that little pain that I get that I thought was my hiatal hernia was actually the heart, because it's gone now. The other thing is you'll see on my blood work, the two red marks there, 86 and 313, is the fact that I'm insulin resistant. Therefore, what's happening is you'll see that my blood glucose is good. My A1C for diabetes is 5.2, which means I'm nowhere near the range, but my insulin resistance is bad. It means I'm not being able to put that sugar inside the cell, break it down as fast. So what's happening there, I can guarantee you this is going to be a nuclear disaster for me if I don't clean up that insulin resistant. Now, the thing about it is sometimes you have to check when you have these. A little secret here is look for the homocysteine. So, running the blood work, the next one, Lauren, the next one on my daughter, she loves her sweets too, but you'll see her blood sugar 72, little reactive hypoglycemia. Then you'll see the two red there, 80 and 305 with the C-peptide and an insulin resistance. Now she's thin, tall, she's blonde, very healthy, but with this insulin resistance, that's the genetic thing that's leading her up to end up with the things that I'm running into with my blood work. Again, for the doctors out there, if you see this pattern, the next thing you'll want to check is that homocysteine, because I can guarantee you're going to see that starting to elevate. Now, on the next patient we had a female come in, and this is one of the places where blood work, if it's read right, done right, you can fix the patient. My daughter, as these two gentlemen know, was born without a thyroid. So basically when that first one up there, that TSH or thyroid stimulating hormone, when that's above 3, I'll get a call from the lab saying, hey, you realize it's above 3. Now this lady here has a functioning thyroid, but it's 4.42, and they sent her home and said everything's normal. Now, my daughter without a thyroid's above 3, and I get the call. This lady at 4.42, they tell her she's normal. Now the range for that number should be about 1.6 to 2.1, and for the doctors out there. And basically what you want to know, you got to also pattern that to the symptoms. So this patient right here, what you're looking at is a hypothyroid, dry skin, hair falling out, constipation, gut problems, and also mood problems. Once we put her on the stuff, the protocol, not only did we fix that, but you can see she's also have a conversion problem in there too, where she can't convert the one hormone into the active T3. We fixed that too. A much different outcome from a patient was sent home, said everything's normal on your blood work. Next.
Yes, so if you guys follow me on Instagram and my lectures, you know I'm pretty big on gut health. This is a pretty cool case with our gut panel, that newer gut panel that we're running at the office that we ran on her, 33-year-old female. She came in with symptoms of swollen lymph nodes, acne, hormonal problems, some severe gut issues, bloating, blood in the stool, IBS-like symptoms and everything. And started treating her for like some staph-like infections with the supplements that we're using. A lot of her acne cleared up, lymph nodes and all that went down. Hormonal things kind of didn't change too much, and a lot of her gut symptoms didn't change that much. So I was looking at running some gut panel stuff with her to kind of clean up her gut, to clear up her skin and look at food sensitivities and all that. And this was her celiac panel that came back, and it was through the roof. And as soon as she cut this out, and this was in a matter of 3 to 4 weeks, she dropped 10 pounds doing nothing, not even stepping a foot in a gym. All her gut issues went away, the rest of her acne resolved, and a lot of her hormonal symptoms all resolved. So it's pretty cool checking this stuff, because we will run some of the IgG factors, IgE, with the gluten, and this was pretty significant, and she wasn't even aware that celiac issues ran in her family. So now we're checking her parents and some other siblings that have some similar issues as well. So it was a pretty cool find.
Awesome.
Now, between Quest Labs, apparently there's 9,000 locations. We can Skype with the world. This is an incredible new age. I've enjoyed doing lectures here. I used to do those big lectures that a lot of you came to, but things have changed. I find this to be a little easier. And we're not taking any questions because we had too much stuff to cover here. The first Wednesday in February, we're going to do a rehash on the blood testing. Send your questions in over the next 6-8 weeks, and we're going to have a complicated, do you hear how these guys went over your blood? Go to your doctor and give him one of these tests. You know what he's going to tell you? You need a colonoscopy. You need a flu shot. They do it to everybody. This is what you want from your tests. People run expensive tests. You guys mostly don't even get a call back from the doctor. We need to run all this stuff. They won't take the time to call you. It's been a waste of time to run all these tests. Dr. Gill has taught reading blood chemistry to the physicians for continuing education. That's been a wonderful asset in the practice. Dr. Jeff has a functional medicine degree, which has been a wonderful addition to the practice. Now, we had a special trip to Standard Process. If I can show you, here's the crew sitting there, and we're going to show you, Tony did a great job making some recordings about what it's like to go to a functional food farm that makes supplements. It was an incredible experience. Enjoy this clip. Roll them.
But the thing I'd like to tell you about this facility, and as you go today, remember, you're seeing two plants. You're seeing a plant that makes raw materials, and a plant that makes finished goods. All they're in the same building. But the piece that really distinguishes us in this industry is the fact that we have the plant that makes raw materials. We make most of what we put into our product, which is not the norm. You know, if I wanted to start a supplement business today, I could go into a strip mall, I could put up a storefront, I could buy the ingredients, I could have them sent to somebody to manufacture them, somebody else to package them, and a third party to distribute them. I could run that business with never ever seeing that product. We've decided to go exactly opposite of that. You know, we want to be as vertically integrated as we can. We don't make everything, but we try to make as many things as we can, because that way we can control the quality and we know where it came from. That's really important to us, and that's been part of what we've done and part of our legacy since we've started.
If you guys have any questions, with a little luck, I can answer it. If I can't answer it, I can find the answer, but this is 100% certified organic. I'm sure you heard all that up there. Wisconsin's the second most active organic state in the United States. So the only state that has more farmers than us organically is?
California.
Got it. Yep. I said, they got most of the cows now and they have most organic farms, but we'll keep chasing them.
Keep the kooks out there too.
This is a really nice place to farm organically. I think we're the second leader in organic because Organic Valley's here. So they're, a multi-billion-dollar cooperative, and their idea of being a cooperative was to help keep family farms smaller and on the farms. And so organic's been a really awesome way for a lot of farmers to keep farming in this state the way their parents and grandparents farmed. That being said, I tried to research it before you guys got here. I think the average vegetable farm, there's Deb, hello, and hi. The average vegetable farm organically in our state is 5 acres. So Charlie tells me about just over 80% of the base of the products comes from this farm. And this year we're farming just under 900 acres. So we are not the typical Wisconsin organic vegetable farm. A lot of people do that well because we have a lot of very successful like CSA and farmers market gardeners. Maybe someone that just raises lettuce for certain restaurants or things like that. So the nice thing about farming here is there is a really large organic community. We have a lot more support than maybe some of the other I states, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa. We have a much more active organic community. The top concentrated organic counties in the whole country are here. Have a lot of really wonderful Amish farms that are organic. So it's nice for us. We just got done combining organic oats. We have a lot of straw left. Well, organic animals even have to have certified organic bedding. They say you can't put a sign up that says you can lay in this straw, but don't eat it, right? So, yeah. So a lot of the things that we don't maybe need, but we have extras of, we make a lot of alfalfa extract and a lot of alfalfa pulp. And that takes us about 1.5 crops. We get 4 crops of hay a year. So the other 2.5 crops have a lot of nice organic dairies that would like our hay. So it's nice in that way, and that we have an outlet. We don't put the same crop on the same field for a long time. So we have 900 acres, but this year 330 of them aren't used for an SP crop. And so I'll show you when we get on the wagon, that'll be the fun part of the day. And I think the rain's gonna hold off. But we have a lot of corn and soybeans, but they're not for us, we sell them. Corn and soybeans are so totally different from a vegetable crop, and such a great rotation away from the things we truly need and that we're trying to concentrate on. I tell people too, like, we do tons of cover crops, we do tons of vegetables, but we don't have a lot of carbon. So if you guys garden at all, if you pick your spinach, what you're left with is dirt. If you go down the line, pick our kale, anything, chopper alfalfa, you're left with nothing. And so these row crops that we sell off the farm too are like a 7-foot high corn stalk, and we're gonna combine 1 foot of an ear. There's 7 foot of carbon we can leave. And so to really have the most soil life, we need fungal pathways as well as the bacteria. So all the green stuff we're incorporating and all the sugars are really preferred by the bacteria, but you need these fungal pathways for them to travel. So to me, this is Christine's philosophy. I don't know if it's in the book, but I was in conventional ag, very heavy for 13 years, and then I've been here for 22. The biggest difference is, just like you guys, we're trying to maximize the health of the soil. Jack's gonna be with us a little later, and we sent him to a conventional field day this week, and he goes, oh my gosh, Christine, it's totally different. He said everything they did was prescribed to, I go, the yield of the corn. So it's very prescriptive agriculture. We're gonna use this many units of anhydrous and this many units of potassium chloride. But he said they never once talked about the soil test, right? They're fertilizing to the end result. It's very prescriptive. We are trying to maximize the health of the soil. We're trying to get as much soil life as we can. This circle of beautiful life is what feeds our crops. In an organic system, you can't fertilize unless there's a need. So you can't just fertilize to fertilize. It's a very different philosophy, very rewarding. So I think we have 11 goals done. We have 13 to go. So we still have a whole lot of season left. What we have left now is a little bit of buckwheat, but then everything that can freeze. So worst case scenario, we could freeze anytime after Labor Day. So it's time to come to Jesus right now.
Generally, I like to show my office on the tour, so I bring you up here to see it. No. This is the Dr.
My
Royal
favorite
Lee
part.
Memorial Library. I think Charlie built this in 1995. Everything in here was,
We finally got it done.
when?
99.
99 when he finished. So everything in here was Dr. Lee's. The fact it all survived to me is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, Charlie had a house that a lot of these books and things were in, and he was trying, what do I do with them? So he built this library and put them here. Now what's great about this library is, you know, since this is Dr. Lee's legacy, this really kind of anchors us as a company to where our roots were, where we came from, so we can always remember where we started and what we're about as an organization. If you look around this room, all these books, everything was his. The desk was his. It really is a 1761 chair. So everything was here. And really kind of a neat thing, if you look at the dictionary over there, that was his dictionary. I think it's a 1915 published date. The word vitamin's not in it. So kind of tells you the state of research when he was a young man and was coming up through and started doing research himself. Dr. Lee was a dentist by training. He didn't practice. He became a dentist because he wanted to be better at making dental tools. And he went to Marquette to med school to be a dentist. At the same time did a startup business, which, kind of tough to do. And by the time he graduated, he was running a successful business. And then he was very entrepreneurial, had many other businesses throughout the decades of the rest of his life. But while in school, he always had an interest in nutrition, to the point that one of his projects he did in school was the connection of looking for the correlation between tooth decay and nutrition. It became his life's passion, and did that kind of research the rest of his life. The other really neat thing about this library, if you look at all the filing cabinets around here and then a room back behind, his research, it survived. It's here. So that's what's in all these cabinets. And that's the other purpose of this library. We come up here and we research his research. If we want to know why he did something in cattle and why he did something in another product, we'll come up here and dig through it and see if we can find out why, or if he had an ingredient. If, we try to figure out why he was using it, or what he might have thought as a substitute, or what things he had tried prior. So we do that here as well.
Oh, very exciting.
So this was Dr. Lee and his wife, and he died in the late 60s. I think he was about 71 when he died. She lived to be, what'd she live to be, Charlie? 103 or 4?
104.
Wow. So she lived to be 104. And I've heard that she came in the office multiple days a week up until about the time she's like 95. So, and
never took the supplements. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. She did.
So, so we owe a lot to her as well. And then Charlie is obviously their great nephew. So his father was in the business, and eventually, Charlie's probably may have told you the story, but he was in one of their heirs, but he died before her by about a month. And at that point in time, for Charlie to end up with the business, that's generational skipping tax, death tax. So he was going to have to give like 80% of the value of the company to inherit it, which, to me, honestly, I think is criminal. But so Charlie waived his inheritance and bought the company from the estate, managed to get financing. So he had to buy the company from the estate. And then since then, we've grown ever since.
The first ones I remember, ACP in that little glass bottle in Palmer College was the first thing we took. Popped that plastic thing. It was 9 in a little box. So I feel old now.
You are.
So this is, if you look through here, you start to see some of the legacy of Dr. Lee. If you look, this was a building of his in Milwaukee, and it's not what the average guy's up to in his spare time.
No.
He's doing research. That's what he did. It's what he loved. It's what kind of drove him. And as you get through the plan, I want you to think about some things. Like this little device here is a tablet press. Wait till you see the tablet press we run now. And the one behind it's a juicer. He actually was, he wanted to be able to make your own juices at home. And so he made and marketed one of those in the 40s. This is a capsule filler. So one capsule at a time. And you compare that to what we do today. And if you come on down, so this is him a little later in life. His personal set of dental tools, some seals, some companies. He had Standard Processes offices in Milwaukee, many, many years ago. But here you start to see some of the things that actually drove Standard Process to be in existence. Early on, Standard Process was his passion, his hobby almost, and wasn't profitable for decades. What drove his income and helped finance us was Lee Engineering and some of his other businesses. And we'll see that down here. But when he died, I think he had 71 patents in his name as well for many different things. And he was way ahead of the curve across the board on lots of things, particularly around nutrition. He despised enriched flours, didn't like them, thought you ought to eat whole grain bread. He was saying that in the 30s and 40s. What's everybody say now? You should eat whole grain bread. And he felt so strongly about it. In 1949, he patented a flour mill, and started selling organic grain so you could make whole grain bread at home. And Lee Engineering was sold in the 80s. We bought it back 5 years ago, and we've brought the flour mill back to market, and we sell organic grain again to put in there, so you can do that for yourself at home now. Here's what drove a lot of what he did with Lee Engineering. He discovered with the Dindle drill that the harder you pushed, it would slow down. It takes a bigger chip and becomes uncomfortable for a patient. So he ended up developing a motor for a drill that no matter how hard you pushed, it'd stay at constant speed, and you could vary that speed to whatever you wanted. That's obviously got applications in every industry you could dream of. They were sold all over in all kinds of different motors and controls. They were used in shipyards to control how cutting torches were moving through cutting plate steel for ships.
It worked everywhere.
Yes, they were in automobiles to help with early versions of cruise control. Airplanes as early versions of autopilots to keep the propellers at constant speed. In World War II, that was part of the Norden bomb sights for the U.S. bombers to keep the plane at constant speed to calibrate how the bombs would drop. The timing mechanism went into, I believe, a ballistic computer for a battleship to help range the guns, because then computers were mechanical. They weren't electronic like they are now, so they keep them running at a constant speed. This is what did it. He designed a gyroscopic gun sight for the P-51 Mustang fighter plane. There was things that he did. He was an absolute genius. But that's where he really kind of made his money early on, and that allowed him to do the things he wanted to do, a standard process, and support it and get it going. So, kind of neat.
Yes,
And one last thing. This is really important. It doesn't look like a lot, but when you get down here, you see these castings. These were aluminum castings for motors. He also had a variable speed drill, hand drill, one of the first ones ever. I have one. I found one. So I have my own. But these castings for his motors, his drills, whatever he was doing, he felt were inferior and thought they were reflecting poorly upon his end product. He felt so strongly about it, he bought a foundry, started making them himself. That philosophy is still prevalent in our company today, and hence the reason we have a farm and try to produce as many of our raw materials as we can, because we can control the quality and we can ensure what goes out our door. So,
Even on a Saab dealership.
yeah.
Why not?
We've got some of his old video recordings and stuff like that Mark Anderson's put on CD.
Yeah.
And so we can literally put it in a player over there, and you can listen to Dr. Lee and sit in this library. And it's almost like, I mean, it's a spiritual experience. It's incredible. So,
Thank God he recorded it
yeah.
for all time. Read protoplasm.
That's right up my alley. I have
Cell growth and cell function, morphogenesis. I want to see if you can read a page of this in school today and tell me what this actually means.
medical botany.
Scan these titles and show you what this guy read to put this company together. Absolutely incredible. You don't even know where you find these books. I want to thank Charlie for giving us a great time and helping us learn more about the company. Hopefully you understood we're long past the days of taking vitamin C. Take some extra zinc. Health is complicated. We're going into 2023. The medical clown show derailed itself. With anybody paying attention, what we just witnessed, I would be embarrassed to be a part of the system. Shop local, buy local, support local, stay free. I want to thank my staff, my wife, all the patients that supported DHS. We really appreciate all the things you've done for us. Pray for your friends and relatives that got the shot. We got to all stick together, and we'll hook up with you guys in February. Have a great holiday.